Hi there, and welcome to a basic tutorial on variables and if statements in JavaScript. If you're looking at this, should probably be one of the first times you've ever coded in JavaScript because variables are so fundamental to the language. They're really the basic building block of everything that we do with code. And so we're just going to start out right away by declaring a couple of variables. So variables allow you to write a word in your program that corresponds to a value, and every time you do that you have to declare that variable with a keyword like var in this case. So we're going to say var gold medal equals 1 because we're writing a program that has something to do with the Olympics where we want to know that gold medal means you got the first place. And we're going to also use the other two ways of declaring a variable here to do the other ones. You usually wouldn't mix up your variable declarations like this when you're actually writing code because they all mean specific things, but in this case we want to see exactly what all of them do and what they mean. So the first thing that we should probably cover is with a comment here, so we're going to do a double slash to indicate a comment, is that this is outdated variable declaration here. And down here we're going to do another 2 slashes for another comment to say current variable declaration. Now, because it's outdated, that does not at all mean that it won't currently work. That's very unlikely that even far in the future they would actually stop supporting the use of the var word. It just means that in the most recent update to the language, there was a switch over to using let and const, but you'll still see var all over the place. In legacy code, just means an older writing of some code, or tutorials that were written a while ago, code that's written by people who haven't adopted the new standard yet. It's important that you know that it exists and that it is very similar to the other two types of declaration. So now we have all these variables declared. What we're going to do is a little console log statement to print out the values of each of these variables to the console. This is a really useful tool, console logs, as a developer, because it will allow you to check the value of certain things even before your program is running, while you're still developing. And so in this case, we're going to log to the console over on the right side of the screen the values of gold medal, then the value of silver medal, and bronze medal, and it'll fire all at once because this is a very simple program that'll run really quick. So we just hit run and we see it prints 1, 2, 3. So all of these have had the effect of assigning that little piece of value into the actual word there. Now let's talk about the difference between why this one's outdated and why these are the current and better ways to do things. So the reason that this is outdated is because it doesn't actually allow us to be that specific. So with gold medal, we'd be able to change the value of it. We can take gold medal, set it equal to 2, or actually in this case maybe let's set it equal to 0 because we've gone from looking at what place people come in to how many people come in ahead of you, and when you come in first there's no one ahead of you. So now that we've set gold medal equal to 0, we're just going to clear our console, and that same statement we had earlier, since we've reassigned the variable from 1 to 0, should print out 0 at the top for the gold medal spot, which it does there. And the same will actually be true of let. So say we're following the same logic and we want to set silver medal equal to how many people are in front of you, which in this case would be 1, that gold medal winner who just edged you out. If we run it again, we should now get 0, then 1, and then 3, because we haven't reassigned bronze medal, although there is a very good reason for that we will very soon discuss. So here we can see it prints out to 0, 1, and 3. Now, the new syntax, if we try to reassign 3 to how many people are in front of you, just might throw us some kind of error. So let's give it a try. What we want to see is 0, 1, 2, but what actually happens is that we get an error. So there's all this sort of information here that doesn't really matter right now. The most important thing to see is that we tried to assign something to a constant variable. And so that's essentially why we use these new declarations, is because in the olden days you have just var. You could always reassign all of your variables. But as you get deeper into learning about JavaScript programming, you'll understand that there are some variables that perhaps shouldn't be reassigned, and some that should, and you can differentiate between that with let and const, and it allows you to be much more specific and make your programming that much better. Now, since we're writing a medal program or an Olympics program, we actually know that the medals probably aren't going to change anytime soon. So what we can do is just delete all this, clear our console, and then we probably want to call them all const variables, just because it'd be very surprising if the International Olympic Committee all of a sudden decided to change the value of what a bronze medal represents after all these years. So there we go. So now we have 1, 2, and 3 all assigned using the const keyword. And it's important to note that variables can be assigned a value of any data type in JavaScript. We're not really going to get too deep into those data types now, but if you want to look it up, data types in JavaScript, just a note that you can maybe Google yourselves later. Data types in JavaScript, but one of the data types we can reassign to is a string. So let's declare a variable with let called current athlete, because if we're calling something current, we know it's very likely to change. And we're going to give it a string, which is essentially the same as giving it just a little piece of text, just as we gave gold, silver, and bronze medal numbers. And in this case, we'll say Winter Olympian Lindsey Vonn, who is a great skier, put her in there. And then we're going to do something with a little bit of fancy syntax down here, which will allow us to see how these variables are used. What's not important right now is the actual syntax I'm using. What's more important is that you realize how the variables can be used in a very simple program like this. You can write current athlete and then say that, so we know she got the silver medal, so we can say you placed number, and then we do the same thing. This is called string interpolation, if you want to look that up. Put that in the notes too. String interpolation, just so you can get the spelling there if you want to pause it and look it up. You placed, and then we know she got the silver medal. And let's make sure our console log statement has one of these little semicolon guys after it. And then we can just go ahead and run there. And the message that prints out is congratulations current athlete, who is in this case Lindsey Vonn, because that's what we've assigned it to. Congratulations Lindsey Vonn, you placed silver medal, and we had the little pound sign here, number 2. But if we wanted to change things up, say we're talking about the Summer Olympics now, we can still keep the variable declaration the same, but we can change current athlete to be LeBron James, and because he is an American basketball star, we know that they probably got gold again, so we can change this to gold medal, but we don't have to change current athlete because that's already been changed up here. And so if we clear the console and then run exactly the same line with that variable in it, we will see congratulations LeBron James, you placed number 1. So as you can see, you can assign all sorts of different values to a let variable, but not to a const. And then if we were to change this to a var, again, not something you want to be writing these days, but something that you'll definitely run into, it would just work exactly the same way as a let would in this case. Congratulations LeBron James, you placed number 1, just prints out again. We're going to go back to let because we know that's the modern way to do it and the better way to do it these days. And now we are going to take a look at if statements. Now, in this case, we know that LeBron James plays basketball, and we know that Lindsey Vonn skis. So up here we'll say skier, and down here we'll say basketball. Just put ski there. And then we can write an if statement. So if statements use variables and they evaluate them and then run little bits of code depending on how that variable evaluates. So if we want to congratulate these people using their specific sports, we can just write if, and then we write a couple of these regular parentheses here, and we know what we want to look at is current athlete, so we just write that variable exactly the same way we've been writing it. Now, for evaluations in an if statement and for evaluations in JavaScript in general, you never want to write a single equals sign. A single equals sign is meant to reassign a variable, so it doesn't work with a statement like this. It's equivalent to saying that current athlete is whatever you say it is. So in this case, if I said if current athlete equals LeBron James, it will kind of confuse the program and think that I'm just trying to assign the variable that I've already just assigned to LeBron James again. So what you want to do is, in some cases, write 2 equals, but really in most cases you want to write 3. This just means that the value of current athlete has to exactly equal LeBron James if we're going to be using this condition. We write some curly braces because that's where our condition goes, and in this case, since we know the athlete in question is LeBron James, we will write, "You are so good at don't have to capitalize that, basketball." And then we are going to throw some more conditions on here later, but let's just check that this works first because we know that current athlete should be LeBron James. Just going to hit run. Yes, it does say you're so good at basketball. Perfect. So what we want to do next is add an else if statement. So because we've written if again, we can write another evaluation here. So we can say if current athlete equals Lindsey Vonn. We know she's a skier, so we can say console log, "You are so good at skiing." Yay. Alright, now we can run it again, but let's just take this out so that current athlete does equal Lindsey Vonn and run the statement. Yep, it does. So what happened in this case when we ran the program is it looked at the value of current athlete here. It saw that it did not equal LeBron James, so it skipped this condition entirely, didn't even look at what was inside it, and then it evaluated this one, current athlete equals Lindsey Vonn, and in this case, it actually did run successfully, but if we had a more complicated program, it would absolutely throw all sorts of errors that I left only 1 equals sign in there. So we'll put 2 more on, clear it, and run it again, because that's the way we should be doing it every single time. And it said, "You are so good at skiing." Now, there is an issue though. If the current athlete equals someone else, like let's say Richard Sherman, who plays football, he would not be in the Olympics because American football is not in the Olympics because, only one country that plays it. This time when we run it, the program won't actually do anything at all because it evaluates these conditions. Current athlete doesn't equal LeBron James, so it's going to skip "you're so good at basketball." Current athlete doesn't equal Lindsey Vonn, so it's going to console log. It's not going to console log. It's not even going to evaluate this condition. So what we need to do is write a final condition, an else, do the curly braces again. Now in this case, we don't have to write this little evaluator here because this is just going to run if those other 2 aren't met. So we'll just write, "What sport do you play?" and then put a little question mark there. And now since we've reassigned it, we know we're going to skip over these first two conditions, and it's probably going to print out the last one there. And if we hit this, that is exactly what it does. It just says, what sport do you play? So just to go over a couple of the basic things here, we have let and const, let being a variable declaration that can be reassigned, const being one that can't be reassigned, and always good to remember that you'll definitely see var out there in the wild when you're poking around the internet or poking around somebody else's code. Just note that for the most part it behaves in the same way as let, and if you get into a situation where you need to know the difference between let, const, and var, you'll be a lot farther into your programming life. Yeah.